Welcome everyone to the Salt Lake Expositor. It's next week is Mother's Day. I almost said Happy Mother's Day to some people earlier today, and I decided against it, and I was glad later on.
There are, though, some countries who have Mother's Day in a different month. I think the Brits do it in March, and I don't know which other countries maybe have different months too.
Yeah,
so but all the countries have mothers.
Jessica, how are you doing?
So far, as a mother, I'm doing great. 2 in college, 2 at home. So I think, that's already good. We're on the right track.
Yay.
And Randy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I got a shot of family last night that was really nice. My daughter opened a new studio. She has a big hair studio downtown Spokane, and she just moved locations to a better spot out of the down mess.
Nice.
And I honestly, I didn't really feel like going to this grand opening she had, but Amanda is my conscience, and she said, baby, you got to go. This is family. And I'm like, I know. So we went and got flowers and went to her beautiful, beautiful new studio. And the first thing I see is my son Garrett walks up and gives me a hug. I'm like, what? And then my son Andrew walks up and gives me a hug. And they said, we've been waiting for you. Like, I was so glad that I ended up going. And it's because Amanda keeps me on the straight and narrow. Because if I had not have listened to her, I would have missed getting to visit with 2 of my sons from out of town. And my daughter, of course, showing her how proud I am of her. So
just want to say you would have missed out, I think, on a proud daddy moment or parent moment, whatever, right? Those are the things where I feel like, I mean, yes, it's all them, right? They're all adults, but it still shows, I feel like, and sometimes makes up for the tough times when they were little, when you're like, look at them. They all made something out of themselves. We did this. We're good.
That feels good. I thought my son Garrett was going to be the one that would never have a steady job. And it's funny because they all have their steady jobs, but Garrett, I don't even know if you can call his job steady, but he makes more money than all of us put together.
Here you go.
By doing what we're doing right now and enjoying it. Crazy.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the best thing, I feel like, when they kind of prove us wrong and in a way show us, they find their way. And my favorite word, like recently in mental health, is mental flexibility. And I think that's the best thing when you leave high demand religion, but also with your family, like stay mentally flexible, like be surprised, be happy that, something I thought would come true didn't. And that's okay. And that can be actually quite good. Like you said, I wasn't sure if and now he's actually financially really successful. How glad you can be that you're flexible enough to celebrate this, even though you did not see this coming. And that's my favorite word right now. It's stay mentally flexible. Like, it's just the healthiest way to be.
Well, he's like his old man who doesn't really like to have a boss. He just likes to do it his way. And
my dad
that's exactly how I always have been. But, you're in luck, both of you. Gene, how was your week, by the way?
So far, it's going okay. Everything's going normal. My mother-in-law is in a care facility, a home with attendance, and so that's going better for Michelle. Not having to worry about that.
Yeah.
So that's very helpful.
Good.
Glad to hear.
So Randy, you have something to share with us as a funny icebreaker start for the show. So just let everybody know.
I think it's good news for everyone who hears it. Because this is something we've been waiting for the prophet to say. He looks a little different, but here he is. We'll go over this here.
Before I die, I want you to know all the cult tactics we use: leader worship, sacred authority, follow the prophet conditioning, and fear of questioning. Then we teach fear of outsiders, fear of criticism, and fear that if you think too hard, you might accidentally disappoint God. We build a strong in-group, we mistrust the out-group, and we make leaving feel like losing your family and your eternal retirement plan. We repeat testimonies until emotion feels like evidence. And then we call that spiritual confirmation. We use loaded language, thought-stopping cliches, and prepackaged phrases so every difficult question can be answered without actually answering it. If the history looks bad, we call it anti-Mormon. If the facts are uncomfortable, we call them attacks. If you notice contradictions, we call that a faith crisis. We reframe doubt as weakness, compliance as virtue, and cognitive dissonance as Satan. We train members to confuse loyalty to the institution with loyalty to God, which is one of the most elegant tricks in this whole culty operation. We sell God like a celestial mob boss: pay up, stay loyal, and maybe you won't be burned at the second coming. Our truth claims are so fragile that we rely on childhood indoctrination before critical thinking fully kicks in. It's disgusting.
The Book of Mormon is simply 19th century biblical fan fiction.
I say these truths in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Amen
I love the way he walks off, as he's saying amen.
At least he remembered.
Almost like how a basketball player, after they shoot a long three, they start walking before it actually goes through because they're so confident. He's so confident, I'm out.
He should have almost made a mic drop.
Right.
But I mean, the kind of horrific thing about it is it's too close to the truth, right? Like, I know every TBM now would be like, no, that's not how it is. And maybe even I would have struggled to see the truth in it while I was in it, right? But it's unfortunately so true.
It sure is. Yeah.
Yes,
everything he said there.
Yeah. I mean, the thing only I can say, it's so hard, right? To think about, like, how can you help a believing member to see this is maybe sit with this and just see maybe some truth in it. Like, don't put it all away because it seems offensive to you. Maybe overcome your ego. Stop this whole, like, it's offensive, but maybe, and I feel like with comedy, it's the same thing. There's also some truth in most of the things, even if you don't like them. And maybe that could be something about this video, like, watch it again, put aside your ego and see maybe from our side how there's truth to it.
Yeah.
I put up one other video. It's short, but it's also kind of goes with the funny. So there is apparently a Mormon...
Gentlemen, introducing
a Mormon musical coming up, maybe.
Go ahead, Randy.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I guess it starts automatically.
Yeah, exactly. It always starts right away.
Okay.
I saw his face. Now I'm a believer. As a matter of fact, I ain't trying to deceive you. Not to mention, please give attention. This movement is moving fast to the NASCAR convention. I know that this is gonna be my legacy. I know the Father and His Son is right next to me. This is not a made-up story full of fantasy. I got 3 and 8 witnesses to vouch for me.
It seems like it was even filmed in the General Conference building, right? That's the organ in the background that they're kind of playfully kind of covered. But
yeah, it does look like that.
And then another comment was like, and they're zoomed in and the one black woman that was there, everybody else still was white. I'm like, yikes, yes.
Yeah, definitely Mormon. Yeah.
And the guy is kind of famous in Mormon circles, right? Like, he a couple of years ago started some songs, and so he's still in the church. And I went on the comment section, and like tons of believing members were like, I don't like this. This is not a good look. Like, nah, we shouldn't do this. So I mean, if anyone has more information to this, like I'm not even like in the beginning, I was like, is this AI? But it is real. So if anyone knows where this is playing and if this is something the church is supporting or is something they want to put up, I'm really curious. I would love more information to that. It's kind of hard to find, but I thought this was a totally Mormon cringe musical, but that's just my opinion.
Didn't we play one of the last few weeks the song about the choir singing about Mormon?
Oh, I
using
don't think
Mormon?
we have in this podcast. That's another
I
good
have
one.
it. I
Go
have it
for it.
right here.
Go for it.
Okay. Gene, Jessica, talk amongst yourselves and I'll grab it right here.
Okay. So I saw somewhere somebody mentioning who actually did it, but I forgot. But somebody, it wasn't me for sure, somebody made it. And it's all about the Mormon Stories lawsuit and kind of the word Mormon, right? As I understand it. But even on my side, so many people were loving it. They thought it was so well done. So I'm really sorry I forgot who did it, but a big shout out, whoever did this. This was a strike of genius, if you ask me.
I absolutely love it.
Yes, so well done. So Mormon. I mean, the question to me is always like, I wonder how active Mormons take this, right? That's always to me like, is this like offensive? Are they just thinking it's silly? Can they see like, yeah, I get it, or I don't know.
You know, they in the beginning they probably think it's just fine. It's just a choir singing.
Apparently,
And
yeah.
they're singing, you know, oh, that's beautiful. But then they kind of get the idea of what exactly is going on.
Yeah. At least that's what they claim with Mormon Stories, right? Like, I was so deceived. I was listening to it like 10, 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm not sure that's from the church. So maybe that's the same with that song. Yes. I mean, apparently a lot of dumb Mormons out there. And I don't mean this as an insult. It's just, if it takes you that long to figure this out, I'm sorry. IQ is like room temperature.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's this. So we can enjoy the beauty. And it is a beautiful song, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a beautiful song.
We are Mormon, yes, we're Mormon. Gordon taught it means more good. We declared it and defend it from the pulpit where we stood. Mormon, Mormon, blessed Mormon, wear the name with holy pride. We are Mormon, yes, we're Mormon, with the prophet as our guide. Then came Russell, Prophet Nelson, said the name gives Satan fame. Every time we say we're Mormon, heaven trembles at the name. Thus we handed Satan victory all those years and didn't know. Mormon, Mormon, Satan's victory, now is time we let it go. Now the name must not be spoken, not by strangers, saints or foe. Trademarked names are being guarded. We will litigate and sue. Do not use it. Do not print it. Do not podcast, blog, or post. Dallas Oaks commands a lawsuit in the name the Lord of hosts.
I was going to sing along and hit that high note as well, but
yes, yes,
I decided against it.
I would have loved it. I would have so loved it.
That's just fabulous. First of all, it's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Second of all, it just tells it like it is.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
And I would love to get responses from members who hear this, see what they think about it, because everything it says is exactly true.
Yep, exactly. The funny thing I just had in my mind, now wondering how far we can go back, is, like lawsuit Oaks, right? Everybody was already saying when he becomes a prophet, you will see uptick in lawsuits. So he's the lawyer prophet. Then we have the doctor prophet, that's Nelson. Then I would say Monson was the story prophet, the storyteller prophet, right? He was like telling stories on and on. Then Hinckley was the PR prophet. So I wonder how many nicknames we could go back and give. I mean, we have the polygamy prophet, and then Joseph could be the liar prophet because he was lying pretty much anything that came out of his mouth. So, I mean,
Kimball was the Lamanite.
Yes, racist prophet, right?
Indian
Yes.
program prophet.
Yes, exactly. Then Fielding Smith, or at least one of them, right? He was the tithing prophet. So.
And old boy, the cussing prophet, who wasn't a prophet, but what was his name? That was
J. Golden
the
Kimball.
apostle. J. Golden Kimball.
Here we go.
Yeah,
But since they're all prophets, seers, and revelators, we couldn't even expand this.
I say prophet seekers and legislatures or litigators now.
That's true. Yeah, that's actually more truthfully. We would state it this way. But I looked actually up the King of New York, because I was still like, is it true? But it says here, at least Google, is a hip hop musical, which we could tell. Oratorio created by Alex Bowie. That's the guy.
Yeah.
Focusing on the life of Joseph Smith, particularly in 1844, U.S. presidential campaign, and so on and so on. So we'll see if that's going to hit off anything. But
it reminds me
people
of
wondering why the church is shrinking.
Yes.
What'd you say, Randy?
That play has a Hamilton feel to it.
Right.
Yes. Absolutely. Copy of it. And I mean, like you said, people are leaving. It's almost like the pageant were cringy enough. They dropped this. Now cringy musicals are on the rise. Not sure that's better.
Yeah. So I don't know if people have heard, but when the church released the statistics from 2025, people noticed that there were fewer Mormons in the United States in 2025 than there were in 2024.
Yep.
And so Randy is looking for the news article that talked about sort of exemplified. It's like a perfect thing where in Washington State, where they're going to build a new temple, where they announced a new temple, they're closing 5 buildings. Is it buildings, or they're selling 5 buildings, I think. So who knows how many wards? That could be more than 5 wards. That
it would almost be a state if you think about it, right? So many.
Yeah.
Or dissolve, and how they always do it then. But yeah, that was crazy. And I heard somebody else at least speculating, I'm not saying that's the truth, but speculating that you have this kind of almost like Zionism move, like a lot of Mormons, at least in the United States, are trying to move more closer to Utah. So you see in outer states, shrinkage, but the Utah Mormons believe they're still growing because they have people coming in Utah, moving in, and their wards not necessarily are shrinking, even though there are obviously some, especially I think Salt Lake County, but outside, was it Toronto or something? Maybe not so much because of that. But it sounded kind of, I can see that Mormons are kind of more fleeing back to Utah, because even the Word Radio guy was complaining how, California is so expensive and all the youth programs are shrinking and are super bad. Well, I mean, your God apparently is not a God of miracles anymore.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Dallin Oaks thinks that if more missionaries had gotten married and had children last year, then they wouldn't have declined in the United States. So maybe they're going to have a thing that if you meet your life partner on your mission, you could just plan your wedding, get married, and you could go home early as serving an honorable mission because you ended up with the golden key.
You already achieved it, yeah.
The marriage,
you got the gal. Now go home and pop some babies out.
Yeah. Maybe the pregnancy test has to be positive before you can be sent home as a couple.
But you know what? There is this problem though. Just because people get married and can have sex doesn't mean necessarily they get kids, Oaks. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but it could be just more marriages, not necessarily more kids. Or even if they get kids, doesn't mean they're going back to the Mormon families or 5, 6, 7. It just means they have 2 when they're 22 and 24, and then they have a nice living, for the rest of their lives and can go, early empty nesters. And that's just the thing. Nobody, I don't think, will dare anymore to say you have to have a bunch of kids. So even if that would, work, that they marry early, and that doesn't necessarily mean getting children early or getting a bunch of them. So I'm not sure he's aware of this. His equation might not work out either way.
That's right. And there's this.
The Lord does not need your money.
But the Lord does need your babies.
No. Yeah.
Maybe that'll be the incentive. For every child you have, you pay 1% less tithing. 9%, 8%, 7%, 6%. And so you can reach the celestial figure of no tithing because you have 10 kids.
Yeah, and we all know now the church literally doesn't need your money anymore. They're done.
That is correct.
Money. So it's just working by itself. So they really truthfully don't need necessarily the tithe payers. But I made the point before, Scientology has the same problem. Just having money doesn't also resolve all problems if you're losing membership, because the church has no standing and it has no members.
Yeah, and it almost looks like Randy is frozen.
Yeah.
And I don't know if did you find the article?
Let me get back to where I am. If it looked like I was frozen, I was just trying to pluck that article out. I will continue to try. So if I look frozen,
we won't worry about it. People have probably seen it, but just type in.
I think it's on Rebecca's or Mormonish.
Right, and so that's part of the Mormon Shrivel, and let's see, what's another part of the Mormon Shrivel?
Well, there was another, at least on my kind of like internet area, there was another Mormon who actually went more into the claim of we're losing more and how can we help them. Gene, you interviewed him. I saw the interview.
Yeah, Jeff Strong.
Yes. So he wrote a book, or apparently multiple books, but that one book that's called Torn was now for sale, I think, end of April. So we're in April. So I saw a lot of people, like he went on multiple platforms, Ward Radio, and then I think Faith Matters or Saint Unscripted. Anyway, so, and I saw a lot of
believing shows first, and then he'll come on the former believers, such as the Post-Mormon Project channel, maybe someday.
Yeah. He has to have his
digest.
Yeah, so that was a lot. I think Jenna Reese reported about it. Like I said, multiple podcasts had him on. Obviously, he also wants to sell a book, right? But sure, he wants to help members too. I'm not saying you can do both. So that was one thing where even a lot of ex-Mormons were all of a sudden like, "Ooh, look at him. He's admitting that people are leaving. And it's going to be this way if we as members don't change." I mean, his whole spiel was obviously culture is the problem, which I disagree with. I wonder, what do you think? Is he right on with the culture is the main problem for people of us? I mean, I'm not saying there are some. I'm not saying it doesn't, but he makes it more look like this is the overarching problem is church culture.
That's right. And another thing that happens is excommunications lead to fewer members. And here's a famous excommunication this week.
A quick announcement from Mormonish Podcast. Yesterday, on April 27th, Landon, co-host with me on Mormonish Podcast, received a registered letter telling him that he had been excommunicated from the LDS Church. They assured him it was a very loving council that they held on his behalf. But yeah, he is excommunicated. We're going to do an episode tonight. I'm going to link it in the show notes so you can get more details. But just some quick answers. Yes, he'd been receiving messages from his ward starting right after General Conference. Isn't that interesting? When President Oaks was put in. But, he hasn't attended for 8 years or so. So, and he travels a lot. He just kind of ignored these. He got a notification for a registered letter, didn't pick it up. He was out of town, basically kind of ignored this process because in his mind, he gives it no power. And then yesterday, the letter arrived that it's a done deal. He has been excommunicated. Interesting, they would choose to go after him, having not attended for so long.
So there you go.
I have no idea. To me, it is a massive confusion. I don't understand why they went after Landon.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. I mean, I've seen some comments from obviously believing members because I posted it too. And they were all saying, well, any organization would do this. If you being against their leaders, like, why would you want anyone in it? And my point is more like, if anyone watches Mormonish, I feel like they're one of those ex-Mormon contents who are the most kindest in their voice. They're just really calm about it. They're not attacking. They're not telling anyone to leave. They're just saying, I saw issues. Those are my issues. They're saying truth that they found out. But I think they're really respectful content creator, and Landon for sure too. So it's almost like those are the good guys. And you want to get rid of it. And also the whole issue with the years he's been doing this and not attending church. He's not even going to church and, doing a double spiel or something. And I have one of my best friends in Germany. She already, same thing, wasn't going to church for years, had a boyfriend who was a never Mormon, was about to marry. So then when the problem goes away, right? And so 3 or 4 weeks before her wedding, she gets an invitation, they want to excommunicate her. And she's like, yeah, no, thank you. I'm not doing that before my wedding. And then, she gets a letter that I think that was the same with Landon. Without her present, they excommunicated her. Wow, what a lovely, family-oriented church who excommunicates somebody. And she never, she didn't, at that point, hasn't deconstructed, had no podcast whatsoever, wasn't saying anything bad. It was just not working for her. And like I said, she wanted to marry her sweetheart, who was a never Mormon, but also is from Africa. So, and he said when she said, do you want to come to my church? He was like, well, you do know your church is by white men for white men. So, and he was actually right.
Fowum instead of what is it? Black by blacks. What is it? The for blacks, by blacks, by blacks.
Oh,
blacks.
I see what you're saying. I don't know.
It's a brand of clothing.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to say it's clothing. Yeah.
And it's kind of a catchy name that they have for it, but
it is. But it's just sad, because we all like to not like we enjoy it, but we report on sexual abuse in the Mormon church. And those people normally only get excommunicated when they're already, in front of the court and they get a jail sentence. And I think if I understand correctly, Jody Hildebrand is still not excommunicated. So it's kind of like you keep the nasty ones, but you excommunicate people who say, I don't think the church is necessarily all that good. So you can't handle criticism. It's just odd. Doesn't sound like a healthy organization to me.
So for us, by us, Randy is what.
Here you go.
Okay. For us, by us.
Nice. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah. But yes.
For us, by us. FUBU.
Yeah. Exactly.
I thought this said Chuck heckling.
Hunt.
Chuck heckling from Monroe, Louisiana. Looked at it real quick.
Yeah.
Chuck Hunt, how are you doing? And
I have mine downstairs. Yeah.
Songs, Jay. Oh, the whole gang's here. I love them all.
That's right.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go right ahead. What did you want?
So here's the book Torn.
Yes.
And so the interesting thing is Jeff 2 years ago put out in Reddit and other places, hey, I'm doing this survey. What do you think about it and pass along, and he was hoping to get a few thousand people, and he got thousands more than he was expecting.
Oh.
And, it's not the way most, blind studies work, or how you could assign very confident numbers to all the outcomes. But it represents why people leave, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember Rebecca wondering if he was sincere, if he was a plant for the church, if it was like the church pretending to be just this one person or whatever. But it turns out that he's compiled all this data, and his own personal family members are, some in, some out.
Yeah.
And so he just thinks that it's not just, people wanting to sin, or people that are convinced by anti-Mormons that the church isn't true or whatever. There's real reasons to leave. John DeLynn did a similar thing 13 years ago. And so it's now come to a more faithful person trying to say, this is important. If we need to not disassociate ourselves from our loved ones who are leaving. That's his main message.
Yeah, but you know what? Still, sometimes where I struggle with this is it's almost like he could only see it once he had a really distraught relationship to his son. It's almost like those men who can only understand, respect women once they have a daughter, right? It's kind of like, oh, so you could not see that before that, or before they get married, right? So that's sometimes where I struggle. And he admits it, and I can honor that he did had a really black and white thinking of people who leave, who were not just faithful enough and not strong enough. But the question also then is, where did he get that narrative from? And then to put it all under the carpet of church culture, it frustrates me to no end, because where does church culture comes from? They pretend it's this vacuum, this like from just bad members. Like, no, it's normally taught from the top down. So he got this narrative taught not outside of church, but inside of church. So the call is always coming from inside of the church, and yet they still want to push it outside. Like it's some, like almost like those some rogue members, and nobody always has a name, right? It's just like some members are just too mean. Like we need to be nicer. If you follow Jesus, why do you need the reminder of being nicer? Like, where's this coming from if it's not taught?
Yeah, and so I interviewed Jeff. It's more about his story and that he was a mission president during COVID. So you can look on Latter Daily Digest recent videos and find out more about him personally. So Latter Daily Digest tries to, do like a shorter Mormon story so that people get to know the creator better. And, he's what I call a good Christian, right? He is a gospel of love type of a guy instead of a gospel of obedience.
Yeah.
He has a friend high up who graduated from a high school in my hometown. And that guy said earlier today that the Lord does not need your money. And so he says that when he has dinner with, what's his name? Bednar. He's just a nice guy, right? When he visits him, nice guy. And then when Bednar goes up behind a pulpit and talks, it's like a different person. And so,
I mean, I take his word for it, but I kind of doubt it, honestly. I know enough people who met Bednar private too, and we're all saying, and there are even apostles on record saying, some could not deal with Packer, and there are enough who cannot deal with Bednar. So if it's just the person on the pulpit who's so hard to deal with, I kind of doubt it, but I'm not saying he's not. Maybe that's his experience. Maybe Jeff has a good relationship with Bednar, and then he has good experiences. But I went to a regional San Antonio conference, where like multiple of thousands of Mormons meet up. And Bednar and his wife was there. Those were the kind of like keynote speaker. And it was horrible. Like they all made this big deal of all our youth. They were the only ones allowed to sit kind of on the bottom of the stadium. And then we had to sit in the stands because they were making it look like they will address the youth. None of them addressed the youth. There were weird stories. And even one of those, Sister Bednar's weird stories where you like blink if you need help, woman. bizarre story. I was fully in, and I was the whole time from the conference back to our car fuming. And my husband was like, Jesse, you need to calm down, be quiet. I'm like, this was the shittiest story a woman can tell young women. She was all about, so the story was, and I make it short, they were in a hotel, and I think one of her kids, not adult kids, had a baby. So they stayed, why doesn't matter, but they were all in the in a hotel. And the baby wasn't sleeping all night long, and she was helping. So everybody was tired and looked like shit the next morning. And she, Sister Bedna, who represents an apostles, because she's the wife, right, went to breakfast. Can you imagine? Now really hold on to your chairs, people, without makeup. She went to breakfast without makeup. And then somebody noticed her, like, oh, aren't you Sister Bedna? And she said, yes. And then she was so distraught, like, oh my gosh, I represented my husband in such a bad light. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you, woman? I'm pretty sure that person was happy to see you, could care less if you have makeup on. That was literally her message.
The big problem is the whole church is made up.
Yes. And they have to put makeup, or what was it, Patrick Mason, Joe Smith's polygamy looks a lot like lipstick on a pig.
Right.
Yeah.
Looks a lot like Sim to him is what he said.
Exactly.
Yep.
But it was so, like I said, I was really fully in. That was before my son even went on a mission. I was in Young Women's. I was like, this is a bad message. Like, why are you teaching the girls and even the boys? Like, that's how you represent your husband, not by being kind, a good example, a follower of Christ. Your non-existence makeup, was it? It blew my mind. So that's just my personal experience with them, where I'm like, and he didn't even correct it afterwards, right? He wasn't like, honey, you looked so great. Like, no, that wasn't an issue. No, he did not. He could have, right?
Of course not.
Exactly.
That would be gentlemanlike.
Yeah, exactly. It would show you, he was a good husband or kind man, but that's why I doubt it. But oh well.
Are the other things you have posted down here have to do with leaving?
Yes.
Let's read. So this are these comments?
Yeah. So this was under, I think, Jenna Reese. I don't know, but it was under some TBM. So you could even see, so there's one person asking him personal, like he was really responding personally to a lot of people, having questions about the book or having their own experience. So I thought this was interesting, and we can read through it. Like, so there's one person asking him a question about his experience, and then his, which I can appreciate, was, I think, a pretty, from a believing Mormon, a good answer.
So the question was, my frustration with these kinds of works is that there's rarely an honest discussion around what the real concerns are from members who leave. The conversations by faithful members are always couched in vague language, giving the member the impression that they've been exposed to difficult information, but really the actual concern isn't ever honestly laid out. It's all inoculation. My 69-year-old mother, who I would never try to dissuade from her faith, told me she's heard every argument against the church that's ever been made, and she still has her faith. So what's my problem, right?
Yeah.
And then she asked me for 3 specific examples of things that shook my faith. So I calmly and carefully gave her those examples. The SEC investigation, no record of the first vision for 12 years, Book of Abraham. And even as delicate as I was being, her jaw was dropped, and she said, there's no way those things I said were true, and it's all anti-Mormon garbage. She spends a ton of time researching controversial issues in Mormonism by faithful LDS content creators and didn't even know the basics of what the real issues are. It's all inoculation, cloaked in the image of honesty, but never actually addressing the real issues head on. In sincerity, after my rant, looking forward to checking out the book.
Right. So then answer 1 and 2 is his respond. Jeff's.
Yeah. So answer 1. So this is Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
So Randy, you read Jeff's response.
All right. If you read it, and I hope you will, you'll have to let me know if you think it's an accurate and honest assessment of why people leave. If you don't feel that way, I missed the mark. You might find this interesting given your comment about your sweet grandmother. 75% of active Latter-day Saints are unable to identify the correct approximate number of people who have left when given a list to choose from. And they almost always choose the answer with the lowest number. And when given a list of the reasons people leave, they also typically select the wrong answers. I think we have a blind spot. And I'll bet your grandmother is a really good person, but it sounds like she has the same blind spot many do. My hope is the book can help with that. Seeing is half the battle.
That's right. If history, current events, and people's experiences are anti-Mormon lies, then you might be in a cult.
Yeah. But I think, to me, like, I don't only want to critique him. I thought that was the most transparent and honest I have seen a lot of TBMs respond. I think he was fair. It was a good answer. He was not hiding behind, like he was saying, yeah, unfortunately, 75% of our membership guessed wrong. So we still have a lot of biases towards people who leave. And I can appreciate that. That's, to me, I feel hurt, right?
Yeah.
So that was just a positive example I saw of him responding. And so that's what I heard a lot of ex-Mormons saying too, like, wow, he really, like, I think he also put out numbers like 40% of active Mormons have left in the last 20 years. And he's like, and it will be more. So that's for the first time in comparison to the latest general conference not too long ago, where they were tooting from the rooftops. We're growing. That's kind of where, like, I can appreciate Jeff, but on the other hand, he has no authority whatsoever. He's not a GA. He's not an apostle, right? So here's a Mormon who's trying to be, at least looks to me, a little more transparent and honest with problems inside the church. And yet you don't see anything even closely remote from the leadership who have authority.
Yep.
How about them apples?
Exactly, right? So that's where I'm keep struggling when you have those, I would say good Mormon trying, like, we talked about before. There's so many, they are good, but yet they have to still do thought-stopping process in the middle of it, right? Because then they have to come back this like, oh, it's just a culture. We didn't love them enough. We're not kind enough. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, I know both of you and me, did you guys left because somebody didn't love you enough? Did you left because of the culture?
I left because I realized that it was 100% bullshit.
There you go. Gene, why did you leave?
So I left because I felt that the apostles were apostate because they weren't very loving toward, what Jesus would say, love one another. And they were not very loving toward women or LGBTQ issues. And so to me, that was not very Christ-like. And so I stopped doing that.
Yeah.
And Jessica, we're not the only ones leaving.
No, like he
Landon,
said, he admitted it.
Yeah, Landon and Rebecca did a show, and I just thought these were interesting statistics that the wards created between 2023 and 25, 96 wards created, 538 wards closed. So they're actually going backwards. The biggest winners of wards that were created were in Idaho, Texas, Missouri, Tennessee, and the biggest losers of chapels was California, Arizona, Oregon, Utah, and Washington. And of course, Seattle is closing 6 buildings.
Yeah.
And so in 2026, since February 7th, or as of February 7th, 12 wards were created, 33 wards closed, and 3 wards from branches. I'm sorry, that last part. Yeah. 3 wards from branches, net loss of 18 wards altogether. So
that's a ton.
That's a lot of people,
Yes, exactly. And that's just also where the church doesn't speak up, right? It's they're tooting out their numbers, all the converts, baptism. Nobody wants to talk that the ratio we keep them is also horrible. We have a hard time in Mormonism keeping adult converts longer than a year, I think, is it, or a year and a half. We have horrible rates, even on missionaries returning from home. I think, what was the latest? In the first 6 months of their return, I think it's another 30 or 40% who leave the church. And that's just the thing. If I would be a company, and those were stats I get about the product I have, you would not only want to hear the nice things, you would be like, shit, tell me also the bad things, because that's what you need to work on. And yet they want to gloss over it, ignore it, pretend that it's not there. And so then again, you put the burden on the members, and Jeff picked it up. If you ask me, he just picked it up by himself. It wasn't his calling. He didn't do it as a mission president, right? He picked it up as a loving father who had a bad experience with his son. That's what I understood was his thing that, started it, the engine that started it all, not somebody who told him to do it. It was more of a concern, truly, as I would say, like Gene said, as a good Christian man, or a good man, a good human who said, shit, I almost wrecked my relationship with my son.
Right.
If you want to do the other one, I think it should be a different one, why people leave. It's not about the conversation.
Oops.
No. Yeah, so that's from Faith Matters. So that's a faith affirming platform.
Go ahead and read that one, Jessica.
Okay. Today, we're really excited to share a special episode with Jeff Strong on his new book, Torn, Why People We Love Are Leaving the Church and What We Can Learn from Them. Research suggests that roughly 40% of formerly active faithful members have stepped away from the church in the last 25 years, and the pace is accelerating. Jeff Strong is asking why. Drawing on hundreds of interviews, he's found that again and again, disaffiliation is rooted in unmet spiritual needs, strained trust, and experiences of exclusion of spiritual, honest, and generally hopeful. Because if culture is part of the problem, there's also something all of us can do to help. And the rest is not really necessary. But look at all the words. Spiritual needs, disaffiliation, exclusion, or spiritual starvation. That shouldn't be something the culture picked up or destroyed.
Is Jeff and a TBM?
Yeah.
So how can a man, and this is a sincere question.
Yeah.
How can a man cover all of these points of why people are leaving and still be in the church?
And not leave himself?
And not leave himself.
Yeah.
So Ganesh Cherian, the historian and former bishop from New Zealand, was in a similar situation. As a bishop, he felt like he did lots of good in the community, and he did lots of good for people that were in the congregation, and that the church had structures and things set up to do good. The biggest problem is all the things that are set up that are institutionally harmful to people. But many of the institutionally harmful things are, the foundation is some sort of prophetic pronouncement from years past. And so if they can, they're starting to say that, the leaders of the church are not perfect and they have, their own problems and stuff like that. And if they can just realize that the truth is they're just people who have been brainwashed in a way to think that whatever comes into their minds is what God wants.
Well, and
that's the harm.
And the problem is what all those TBMs, I feel, at least the ones like him, I think he's a kind person, are not aware of. They're not fighting with us, because I'm pretty sure, Randy, Gene, there's nothing. If somebody would ask you, what could the church do? I think we had this conversation before. We all would say nothing, because we figured out it's not true. There's nothing they can do for us to come back. So don't fight for us. We're good. We're out. We're good. We're done. You're fighting inside the house. You're fighting people like Jacob Hansen, who is fighting other active Mormons and saying they're not really the real good Mormons, right? So if you click on that next page, those are just the people he called out recently. And he's a Mormon apologetic, right?
Do you see it at the bottom, Randy?
Yep.
Click on it.
I was just reading Diamond Dave's message. Earlier, is this the one?
Yeah.
You want to read that, Gene?
Yeah. Earlier today, Jacob Hansen released this video attacking polygamy denier Michelle Stone. He's made attack videos like this before against folks like Dan McClellan, John DeLynn, Dan Reynolds, Dr. Julie Hanks, but not yet Randy C. Watts, interestingly. Because it seems that Jacob is entirely incapable of stomaching when someone has a bigger platform to influence church members than he does, unless they agree with every opinion of his. In the video about Stone, who I personally know, for the record, consider to be a kind woman, but a borderline conspiracy theorist, Jacob repeatedly corrects her takes as not being in line with the brethren enough. He also points out that she doesn't sustain the brethren with her audience. Instead, she teaches a divided body of Christ. This is a recurring theme of his videos against other members of his own church, too.
And so what Jeff is keep making the point is we need to be more loving. We need to be accepting, kind of like, the Jews are even okay with atheist rabbis. Mormonism isn't. But he likes to make this claim as if Mormonism could create a space for Mormons who don't believe but want to attend a community. Those are the PMOs. We already know it. They're physically in, mentally out, right? So if you want to fight for them, don't ask us who left. So that's the problem for me. It's like he's fighting actually inside the house, but using us who left. So I'm not sure he's aware who he's fighting. I think he's more fighting with people like Jacob Hansen, who are actually saying, no, they have no place in here. Julie Hanks, out. You're helping, liberal women, out. Leave. You're not good enough. Dan McClellan, he doesn't like the data over dogma over data or data over dogma, right? He doesn't like him. He even called him out. I think I have that video, actually. It's really disturbing where you're like, so what does Mormonism want? Do they want Jeff Strong's version of it? Like everybody is welcome? Or Jacob Hansen, who actually only want the yes man people?
They want the people that pay their tithing, whether they believe or not. Seriously, they don't. The church really doesn't care if you believe or not. What they care about is, do you build the church with your funds? Are you attending, to show numbers? Whether you believe or not is completely irrelevant to them.
So is this thing, if I press play,
well,
is it going to?
It's something else. I mean, it fits with it.
Oh, so it will play. That's what I was asking.
But if you can turn down the volume or mute it, can you mute it? Can you mute it and put it up again? Because we don't need the music, but we could read it, and it's just on point what we were talking about. So it says, this is where they were standing when I heard Mom quietly crying to Dad about how sad she is that I have such a beautiful life, but none of it matters because I'm not Mormon, my brother.
That's right. That's how.
That is so realistic.
Exactly.
That is so, oh my gosh, when I was younger and my oldest son was mission age, he decided to go into the military and became a Navy SEAL. But my mother-in-law called. This is the mother of my kids, my first wife. And she says, oh, Randy, I heard the news about Randy Tyler. I'm so sorry. And I'm thinking he got hurt or something. I'm like, what did you hear? She said, I heard he's going in the military and not on a mission. I said, no, he is in the military. He is on a mission for your freedom. Yep. So what if no one did that and everyone just went on Mormon missions? How do you think our country would look?
Yeah.
It really upset me that she made that innuendo that he was no good because he didn't go on a mission.
Exactly. And I have this in my family. So my mother-in-law, my first son went on a mission, and I talked about this plenty in our interview. And then I had another son, they're just 23 months apart, so that he was about to go on a mission. And then we figured out for ourselves the church not true. So we were like, hey, buddy, you might want to hold on, with the thought going on a mission. And then he actually allowed himself to say, I actually never wanted to go. I'm so glad you said it. So already one red flag, right? Our son would have done it to make us proud, not because he wanted to go, but he's a good son. And then the second thing is, once, my husband's side of the family then all got aware, the first comment my mother-in-law makes, if you would have lived closer, like I would have made Marvin go on a mission. Where I'm like, if you don't even have influence from right now, you think that the distance is really the issue? But it's almost like, don't you care? He's a good kid. He goes to college. He's a very kind person. He always, like, if you ask him to do something, like even when he was little, I remember we're in Walmart and there was this mom with a baby and she had 2 carts. He jumped there. He's like, Mom, can I go to the car with her and help her push the second cart? I'm like, please do. He was like 12, 13. I didn't have to say anything. He's just a kind kid. But none of this matters to Mormons, right? And even to Jeff, it didn't matter. He was just so upset that his son came early home, right? Gene, that's the thing. His son came early from his mission. And I think, if I remember correctly, he bought a ticket or something and just left for 6 months, no contact. And it's not like, like, where's your worrisome? Where's the father who's worried about the son? No, he was so disappointed. And he says, he admits to himself that was not a good look. And that's how he came to where he is right now. But I'm wondering, but where so many Mormon dads are like you were. They're just disappointed. There's no love. There is no, hey, buddy, we can pick this up. I don't want to lose the relationship to you. And he lost his relationship too. I mean, I know, at least he says, right, he's fine with the son and I believe him. But it's kind of like, so you want to claim the person you were grew in a vacuum. That was not the Mormon leaders teaching you that?
Yeah, right. I was a piece of clay when I was a kid. From the time I was a baby until about 55 years old, the Mormon Church had their way with me. And you know what? For the first 45 years, I was all in. I don't know how. I don't know why. Thinking back, why did I believe? Well, I do know why. Because it's like so many people, I was born into it, raised in it, and you think that's what life is. You don't realize that there's a different kind of life away from the church.
Yeah, and I watched Gene's interview with him. I don't know, Gene, what are your thoughts? You don't have to share, but I thought the first half, when he was talking about his upbringing and his, let's say, difficult relationship with some relatives and even with his dad, I thought he did such a Mormon thing on glossing over all the toxicity in his family by like, but I learned because my dad was so hard on me. Would I wished maybe a better dad, but maybe then I wouldn't have become who I am. It's almost like if you say kids who are growing up in abusive families, they're only the person because of the abuse. And this is so toxic. And Mormonism does it all the time, excusing former relationship. And even if his granddad had, what did he say?
PTSD.
From military. Okay, we didn't have words back then, but it's still not an excuse. It didn't make, it's more to me mind-blowing how he was thinking if his dad would have been rich and kind, he would have been a worse version of himself. Where I'm like, can you imagine who you would have been if you had the dad little Jeff needed? It's so Mormon to excuse all the, he was always giving Gene a little bit of honesty, and then you could tell he was uncomfortable, so he took it back, kind of like, but it wasn't that bad, it did serve me well, and how he was this miracle birth just because back then maybe they didn't know why his parents made him, right? But it's like, no, it was not freaking miracle. Those things happen, but it's this, everything is washed up with Mormonism, and it's so sad to see in a good man. Like I said, I think he is a good man and he's trying and he changed. But the thing we don't allow is, can we maybe imagine in a positive way who he would be if he would left church? Maybe he would be more authentic, more loving without restraints, that still he has his biases, right? So that's why I'm always so sad when they have to fall back to, there would have been worse.
But Jessica, had he left church and written this book, no members would read it.
But will they read it anyways? I don't think most Mormons will read the book. At least what I read, a lot of Mormons were like, or even on they were like, but Mormons won't read it. It's some liberals and some apologetics who will read it. Will it really read most of the Mormons? I know outside of the yes, nobody will, because it won't be translated.
If it doesn't fit the narrative, they're not going to read it. If it even begins to look like a book about post-Mormon life, or maybe some things in the church aren't true, that'll go right in the fireplace.
Exactly, because most active Mormons are nowadays even afraid to read Rough Stone Rolling. And that's Richard Bushman, right? Exactly. So people are like, "Ooh, I know a lot of members who left because they read the book." So now even the Mormon approved books are not all good
Or
necessarily.
the gospel topic essays.
Exactly. I mean, or can we envision a version where he would have really truly sit with his son and said, "Talk to me. What are your issues?" And he would have listened and said, "Wow, yeah, you're right, actually." Because he's still saying his son is wrong, right? I mean, like, there's no way as a believing Mormon you would have left the true joyful spirit gospel, right? So he still on some level have to say his son went astray. He's now not connecting his love anymore. It's unluckily now it's unconditional love and not conditional love anymore.
So we mentioned Jacob Hansen earlier. You want me to play that Jacob Hansen clip?
So that's his attack on Dan McClellan.
Okay, here it goes.
McClellan, because I want to come back to the Bible contradiction. He's an interesting guy in that he's super educated. I don't know his exact expertise. I've heard, debates on if he really is a textual critic or not, or if his expertise is something else, and yada, yada, yada. So this isn't to attack him, but overall, fellow Mormon, seems very liberal ideologically.
I don't think, if you want my honest opinion, Dan doesn't believe in any of the fundamental truth claims of the church.
Okay.
I'm not sure why he remains or claims to be a Latter-day Saint. And maybe this is a little bit frank. And I'd be happy to have Dan on my show. Dan, you're welcome to come on my show anytime and talk about your beliefs. He never talks about them, but when he does talk about them, he says that the data, Latter-day Saint beliefs, and then he says you should believe the data over the dogma.
Right.
So just put two and two together there. And he doesn't believe in the Christian claims. He said explicitly that the data doesn't support the resurrection of Jesus. So I'm sitting there going, Dan, you're saying that the data supports atheism, and you're saying we should trust the data over the dogma. So it's not very hard to make the inference of what you actually believe here. If I'm wrong about this, Dan, you are welcome to come on my show anytime.
I would love to see you two.
Oh,
go ahead. Because you seem to be more of I would say a conservative Mormon. If he's a liberal Mormon, you would be more of a conservative Mormon.
Yeah, I actually believe in the
You actually believe
in
in the things, right? Yeah. So the Protestant version, I don't mean to be disparaging of a Dan, but it would be the pastor that just came out and said they're transitioning and they're becoming a woman. Is that when I hear Dan talk, it seems like the strategy or the tactic is I'm going to poke holes at the scripture, at the Isaiah scroll. Is it 99% the same? And Wes Huff messing up this quote on Joe Rogan, and him and Alex O'Connor have this weird symbiotic thing going, and right? And so it's like poking, trying to really poke at the reliability of scripture. I'm not even talking about inerrancy. I just mean, is the Bible reliable, right? Is it a reliable source of truth, history, teaching, correction, rebuke? Poking at that. And so the theory has been that is because if the LDS apologist can make the Bible seem crazy and wild, then the teaching of the LDS Church doesn't seem as implausible.
I thought what was the key thing, and I think that's right now, where the fight in the trenches in Mormonism is Jacob made the distinction, right? When he said, so I would say you more conservative. He was like, no, I'm more a true believing member. Meaning a liberal member is not a good enough member, is not a true believer. So my question or my plea would be with Jeff, stop talking about people. Yes, he claimed he had some research, but they're still talking over us, not with us. And talk with the people inside of your house, like Jacob Hansen. Why are you not calling him out? Because he's literally living that toxic culture you're talking about. Why are you not calling out those guys in your church and pretend they're all this, nobody knows who they are, but they just exist? Then call them out too and say, that's not good. It's not helpful for our church, but they don't, right? They never call out the believing members.
Yeah, one thing they don't realize is that, there's so many things that the leaders have uttered in the past, even like the Adam God theory and other things that Brigham Young said that have been disavowed. Like we can't use our brains. We can only disavow something that a current leader disavows.
Yes.
But being rational is not being a good Mormon.
No, it's really like what is it? Who is it? Was it Oakes? Like, you can't criticize the leaders even if the criticism is true. I mean, that's the core why it's problematic, and that's why also we will see it with Word Radio. I watched it. Believe me, it was a sacrifice. You're welcome, y'all. Don't do it. Jeff is still kind of walking this line of he needs to support the leadership. He's always saying, I'm not criticizing the leadership, but there are issues, but I'm not criticizing them, right? Like he has to always fall back immediately and then put it on him. Like, but we, the members, and then they keep ignoring where is culture coming from. Culture doesn't exist in a vacuum. And I want to ignore this, that the problem, again, I can just repeat 1,000 times, is coming from inside the house.
That's right.
And they keep
Randy,
looking outside.
You are muted, Randy. So if you want to say something, we'd be happy to hear you.
I was just going to say he's obviously trying to avoid being excommunicated by saying, not criticizing the leaders. But you know what I feel about that.
That's right.
And by the way, I don't think that Jacob Hansen believes the church to be true. When I listen to him, it's like he's doing this for a living.
Yep.
He's playing a character. I don't think he believes the church is true.
I think he craves attention. He craves the attention. So he keeps making more and more podcasts and calling people out in the hope, if I poke enough the hornet's nest, one will come and talk to me.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to talk to him. He's really like not a good character.
Okay, yeah. I'll play the
first one on the left.
Convo flow. We'll just let the convo flow.
Yeah, and
so tell us about your book, and then guess what people in my audience said, and let's see if it squares with what the general audience said.
Man, that's great. I can't wait. I'm here to learn. So
cool.
The brief version of this is my personal journey into the LDS disaffiliation space started with my own son 13 years ago, who left the church. He was
now I can't make jokes.
No, you can. You can. Okay. So there was a lot of pain and suffering, but there were some funny, crazy times too. So anyway, I was also a bishop at the time, and this was 2013. So there were people in my ward, and they were leaving too, and none of these folks, my son and these other families, fit the profile I had in my head in 2013, right? That profile was, well, the people that leave the church are just those people that don't have the faith and character to be Latter-day Saints. They just couldn't cut it, so they washed out, and that's it. And that's sort of how I grew up, and that's how I thought. And then all of a sudden, I was seeing people that were kind of devout, faithful, traditional Latter-day Saints that were stepping away. And Card, my brain just doesn't handle that stuff well. Like when the words and the pictures don't match, I go,
okay.
Wait a minute. There's more going on here. So it started out just very informally, where I was trying to learn, right? I'm talking to people. I'm trying to learn what's going on. What are you thinking? Why are you feeling like you want to do this? Well, then later, I taught at the business school at BYU for a few years after my career was over, and I got close to some students, and I was having conversations with them, and then I did a little bit of work for the church on this, and then I was a mission president, and I talked to Card, and I did 4,300-ish interviews in 3 years.
Oops.
No, it's all, that's really, you didn't miss anything. But it's so like you can, you know, when we were asking how can he do it, he's entrenched in Mormonism. His career, he's getting asked, he's, you know, getting promoted and mission president. That's why.
That's right.
That's why he's in there and can't let it go, right? He's getting also a platform, so to speak. He makes money with the book. He made money. His career was entrenched in it. But I thought it was so mind-blowing when he said in the beginning he was a bishop, and then, you know, people left and that didn't fit my profile, where I was like, who are you? Where do you get this profiling from? Was it just you, or did the church taught you those profiles? And then for the first time again, he acknowledged, oh, and then I learned, oopsie, I'm wrong.
Jessica, he gave examples of why people leave the church. Did he give answers to those concerns?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He admits there is doctrinal problems, historical problems, but they're all overcloaked by culture, because he doesn't dare, because every time he's like, I will not talk about doctrine. That's not what I'm here for. I will not criticize the leaders. That's not what I'm here for. But we as members need to do better. He's all about this, like we need to just love them more. As anyone, that's why I asked you in the beginning, none of us three would come back. It would actually annoy the crap out of me if I would get love bombed again by members, right? This is not why I left. I didn't left because members, it was the opposite actually. We were like the perfect family. Married in the temple, 4 kids, white family. I was the Stake Seminary a teacher. My husband was the Sunday school president. He served multiple times in Young Men's. He was a high council. I multiple times in presidency, Young Women, in primary. So we were I had even a friend who said, I was so shocked when you guys started deconstructing, because she's like, you were always my example. And I'm like, what? I mean, I never felt like that, because I think in Mormonism, you always taught this inner struggle, like you're never good enough anyway. So then you never feel like this. And maybe there are some narcissists who totally thrive in Mormonism. I'm not saying that, but I wasn't one of them. But I was loved. I had friendships. That was in Texas, at least for a decade. Those were my only friendships. We're Mormons, Mormon moms, right? So I was in it. It worked for me. But I just learned the truth. No love can make up for a lie.
And also, but it worked for you. But the other thing is that the people who are decision makers in the church, they are all people who the church works for them, right?
Exactly.
But they're all wealthy, and they think that God has blessed them for their work in the church. And so if everybody else just puts their nose to the grindstone and works diligently for Jesus, Jesus will bless them with riches, right? The prosperity gospel.
Exactly.
So what they don't understand is that there's the harms that occur are enough that if religion was a commercial product like peanut butter, like I've said before, that if there's a tainted product, you spend tens of millions of dollars to get that tainted product out. You have responsibility. You have, what do you call that? Responsibility to your consumers, responsibility to your name, to your brand. But when you're in religion, if something bad happens, it's just Satan doing it. Yep. It's not what you did. It's what somebody else did. Somebody else that doesn't even exist.
And we just had a talk, right? Like a couple of years ago at BYU, and the guy was calling out activism. So Mormonism doesn't even officially support activism, right? People like Sam Young, who's saying, hey, we're having here a really shitty system. Mormon bishops shouldn't be allowed and having sexual interviews with children and teenagers. And to your point, I don't use peanut butter, but I use Nike. I remember, I think it was Nike, Adidas, like all those sports shoes when we figured out, I think it was either the 2000 early or 90s, that children were making the shoes. And what did consumers do? They said, no more Nike, no more Adidas, whatever the brand was, right? So that's what we do. Then we get into activism and saying, we will not support that brand. I will not buy it. And they will feel it fast. So what do? They change. But in Mormonism, again, that's towards those, like, you don't criticize the leaders, even if the criticism is true. Even if we're saying, there's child labor, I'm not supporting it. You should shut up in Mormonism and you march the march.
That's right.
That's toxic and unhealthy. That's not how it works. And that's why Mormonism, if you ask me, relies on people like Jeff who do the dirty work, because they don't want to call it out, right? They can, because then they're admitting not everything runs as smoothly as they like to pretend.
That's right. You want me to play the second
yes.
thing?
In your study, I haven't read your book. That's one of the reasons why I want to get you on the show.
Yeah.
But my feeling is this. It's probably not doctrinal. Though people will say doctrine, that's usually an excuse they find afterwards.
Okay, can you pause? Pause?
I think it is almost purely cultural.
Did you hear this? Yeah. You can start from the beginning. Here again, what he thinks white people leave.
On the show.
Yeah.
But my feeling is this. It's probably not doctrinal. Though people will say doctrine, that's usually an excuse they find afterwards.
Who of you found the excuse? Then why do they leave? I didn't find the excuse afterwards.
So I'll say, 90% of the people that leave, just something's not working, right? And it used to be the trope that they were offended by somebody, right? But what it is their inner person really realizes that there's not what I thought the church was, right? There's not love. They're not doing the things that Jesus says or whatever. And then they do give themselves permission to look up church history. And that does give them ammunition and support for being more vocal about leaving and stuff like that. But anyway,
I think
we'll let him continue.
yeah, I think you're right. And there's also, I feel like, and I think who is it? Jared Halveston pointed to that too, right? There's a shift in generations. Like he said, our generation and older left because they figured out the church is not true. Now they're leaving because the church doesn't feel good anymore. And that's Jared Halveston, right? A Mormon apologist who's actually saying this, right? Like before, I feel like my generation and older, we had to prove ourselves wrong. I really had to make sure this is not the true church. Otherwise I can't leave, right? So I don't do this afterwards. I have to really come to this conclusion so I can actually leave, because otherwise, salvation all goes to shits. But the newer generation, I think my kind of older kids, like 20s, I feel they leave because they're saying, you're not doing anything good, really. I don't feel good. And they don't even deconstruct history because they don't need to, because they just feel this is not really Christ-like. I don't feel unconditional love. And Mormonism doesn't give unconditional love. I mean, Bednar is even on record saying, and Nelson, I think too, right? No, actually, God's love is conditional.
So yes, the anti-Mormon animation movies like Inside Out or whatever that talk about how your feelings are important. That's what is allowing kids these days.
I think it is
just follow their heart.
Yeah, you can keep playing it, and then we can talk about
cultural.
It. Quite fascinating.
And this is probably deeply informed by my history in going over like survey data and politics and so on and so forth. Most people are apolitical in America. You might convince them they're Republican or Democrat or Libertarian, but that's usually more a function of social group and education level and neighborhood than it is really of actually any kind of like intellectualism within these people. But I bet if I were a betting person, I would say the number one reason why people go inactive from the church is cultural, because our church is, and all churches are for us, by us. And right now the us is a very specific brand of wealthy suburbanism that does not translate to every single living scenario out there. And if you're not in that social club or that demographic, you probably don't necessarily feel welcome. If you're not of that generation, you probably don't necessarily feel welcome. And there's kind of a specific brand of Mormonism that has pervaded post-war, frankly, since we standardized and started correlating everything in the 70s and 80s. So the generation that flourished in the 70s and 80s now controls the narrative, the doilies, the interior design, and even the activities and the topics that we'll speak about in our standardized gospel doctrine classes, right? And in many ways that was great and yielded a large amount of growth post-war, but now has actually become a burden that we are ill-equipped to change because we are so used to standardized and central planning. So until that generation goes, we will languish in it. So it's cultural. I bet it's cultural.
Yeah. I came up with an answer, Cardin.
Yeah. What is yours? What is yours?
I came up with my answer. It might feel like a bit of a cop-out, but hear me out for a second. I think the primary driver is probably, if we look at the root, I'm going to go with the primary reason being pride.
Ooh.
And that's not necessarily pride.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Just make him a bishop already. Seriously. No.
Look at my beard. No.
So to be fair, but I thought it's enough, it would get longer. He did then explain he meant also pride from members, that they drive out other members because they're too prideful, like Jacob Henson. He didn't say that, I said that. But, people...
I thought he was saying that people leave because they're too proud to be in the church. And I'm like, I don't agree with that.
Exactly.
They're embarrassed to be in the church.
Exactly. Right. And Jeff did say that too. He's like, oh, I did understand you wrong, but it would have gone more and more. And I felt that the video was long enough. So that's why I just want to say, hey, this is not funny enough what he said. He said, yes, that does exist, right? We all know that. I mean, in the 80s and 90s, it was Mormons left because they were too intellectual, right? The intellectuals were also the enemy bypacker, right, for the church. So I think it does exist. It's funny how he changed it. And I think in that matter, he actually made it better. So I just want to give that. So we don't need to talk about the pride thing. It was just kind of there at the end. And then I wanted to cut it. But I mean, I don't know how you guys were. I was just like, the whole time I watched this, I was just like, they don't get it. They really don't. They don't want to get it. It's all culture, right? Cardin goes on and on, then how expensive California is, and his ward goes to shits because nobody can afford to live in California anymore. But again, I'm kind of like, well, your church could help them. They could help people financially to stay in California if they, want it so badly. There are solutions, but they don't want to talk about solutions.
Yeah. So Jessica and Randy, some people are wanting to talk, and in our audience, you want to bring people in, and then we'll add the other topics as we go. All right.
Yep.
Well,
Sure.
people want to hop on now and give their little viewpoint about Mormon Shrivel. Ron, if you're available to come on and talk
song
about
and
stuff.
dance.
Yeah. And so,
but it shows me every time, when I make, and I know always like it's really hard mentally for my mental health, but it's like it's so Mormon. It's like you hear it and you know exactly kind of where they're going. You remember those excuses and how it makes them feel better, but they don't want to address the real issue. But the funny thing is how Corden, or whatever his name is, right, is claiming it's the older generation, where I'm like, yeah, but those were the members. Like, now you're blaming them for what? Like, it's still, again, the call is coming from inside the house.
That's right. Welcome to the show, Dave. What are your takes?
I got several takes. One, like Jacob Hansen, like I saw some people, and I don't recall if you guys said this, but like I saw some people in the chat talk about Jacob Hansen and how he doesn't believe it. I know he is a believer. I know people who know him personally, and this is coming from a guy who used to hang out with Ward Radio and like spend a lot of time with them in their Discord and seeing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I do think two things can be true though, right? Yeah. So while I disagree that he's not a believer and he's just doing it for the money, I know he's a real believer, but I also agree with Jessica in that, yes, he is a real believer, but he can also crave attention at the same time. It's not a either or situation. It's very much a both situation. And that's one of the things about especially like influencers, Mormon influencers in general, is they are true believers that will die on bizarre hills.
Jasmine.
But Jasmine and others, right? They'll die on bizarre hills, but they are true believers that crave attention. That is why they are influencers in the first place. If Jacob Hansen was a true believer but did not crave attention, we would not know he would exist, right? He would just be in the Lord. We wouldn't have a YouTube channel.
I think they're actually craving more attention or more aggressiveness from the leaders. And because they don't get it, they don't get their way, they doing it for them. Because they want the church actually be louder and more aggressive, right? And kicking those people out. They're not doing it. Therefore, they doing it because they're almost too strong of a soldier, but they don't get the place in the church, right? Like Jacob's not a bishop or stake president or mission president or anything. So he's just grabbing the power by himself.
Yeah, not yet. Keywords are not yet.
Yeah.
I have an issue with this whole thing because, first of all, them going to battle with the Post-Mormon community, which is what they're starting to do. It's starting to be, it's getting more proliferant that that these guys are kicking up against the Exmo or Post-Mormon broadcasters. It's no secret that they're starting to kick against we pricks because of what the prophet said. How can Jacob Hansen, Diamond Dave, how can he be a true believer with all of the evidence that have been presented to him over and over? I mean, RFM was an apologist for the church, but when he found out enough, he's like, wait a minute, how can I be an apologist for the church? I don't believe this anymore. And he made the switch. I don't know how Jacob Hansen can possibly believe it.
Well, the easiest answer is a combination of faith as well as personal experiences, right? I am not an expert on Jacob Hansen, but I think he's around my age. I'm 37, right? So let's pretend Jacob is 37. That's 37 years of life experiences. We don't know what he's experienced personally. We don't know what, alleged prayers he said that he claimed would be answered, right? So there's that dynamic. But also too, it's a combination of faith, and then I think there's also a dynamic of just believing that he's right. You know what I mean?
I think he has a savior complex.
Because it's like, how do you believe in the church? Well, if it works for you,
exactly,
and you have those personal spiritual experiences, why would you not believe in it just because of evidence, right? I mean, we can look at radical Islam and people who flew airplanes into 9/11. How could they believe in Islam with all the evidence of the Quran?
Yeah.
They did. And they died for it,
Yeah.
And, so I do, and it's also too, like, the dynamic of what one prioritizes. You prioritize evidence. He prioritizes spiritual, personal experiences. Those are not the same thing, right?
No, they're not.
And to even use a religious example, because I go on conservative Christian podcasts, right? It's the same thing with comparing Hinduism with Christianity. Christians believe that humans are, sinners, need a savior, and, that whole line. But we don't believe in the concept of sin, and we don't seek salvation. We seek internal peace and enlightenment. So off the bat, it's not a one-to-one. We start at two different places. We end up in two different, like, endpoints. And that's what in that analogy, that's like how you compare with Jacob, because you both start from two fundamentally different worldviews, and your personal experiences will lead you down two different paths. And because you prioritize two different things, you're going to end up in two different places.
But I feel like it's two militaries. I really feel like the Post-Mormon community has a great deal of ammunition, a whole lot of it. And the Mormon community, the apologists, they don't. They have things they can say, but none of it is provable.
Well,
everything
here's the thing.
Is provable.
Sure,
but I don't
here's
think
the
they're
thing.
talking to us. The thing is, I feel like apologetics are not talking to us. That's the miscommunication.
Exactly.
We are talking to them, like you said, and you're absolutely right, Randy. We are trying to say, hey, this is intellectually, not honestly, how you work here, right? But they're not even, that's what I'm saying. And it would be silly if they would be talking to us, because we were not coming back. They're talking always inside the house. It's the echo chamber. They're giving Mormons a good reason to stay. Hey, no problem. I found answers for you. And that's why they're saying, don't listen to Jesse. Don't listen to Randy or Gene, because that's the real problem. They're just saying, oh, we know some issues, but trust me, bro. Kind of, that's Mormonism, right? It's trust me, bro. Yeah. I found answers for me. It works, so it will work for you. But just don't look into it. And then you have the aspect of exclusive. I mean, Mormonism is an exclusive club, especially for white Mormon men, right? And Jacob Hansen thrives in this. It gives him this thing of, I'm special. I mean, I saw once a podcast where he even said, I think it was the one with RFM ones. It doesn't matter. Anyways, he was saying that most of his siblings are out and intellectually out. So here again, he's the special last maybe son in his family who's still holding strong, right? So more specialness. And I think Britt said it once too, especially when you go into like kind of like really nihilism, is like, what if you let go of the humans are special at all? And I love this. For me, this was freeing to say, maybe I'm not special at all, because that's all Mormonism does, is you're so special. You have the only truth. Look at you. You found something billions of people couldn't found, right? This exclusive club, this specialness. And I think this is a really toxic thing when you grow up with like the special and chosen generation, the special truth, the only truth, right? You grow an ego that's not healthy. Instead of acknowledging, I'm a speck on something like really huge. I'm just a little tiny wheel. And what if my life has no purpose besides living, let live, and that's it? And Mormonism cannot deal with that. And those people thrive in that because they need that specialness.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of Jessica's point, and to touch on what Randy said, again, you're a close friend of mine, but I fundamentally disagree, because again, you're looking at this from the wrong angle. You're looking at it from the angle of We have ammunition, like the ammunition is evidence, right? But in the social media world, the ammunition is not evidence. It is following. It is influence, right? So for instance, if you guys were to like, have a Facebook page, right? So Randy Watts has got a YouTube page. He's got, a few hundred subscribers, maybe a couple thousand followers like on your Facebook page, right? And you and I would go to war. You would lose 100% of the time, not because I'm right, but because I can pull over 100,000 people into it, right? And that's how the church operates. So it's not, following the lines of like two different militaries. Okay, you can have that specialized ammunition of evidence, right? But if I come with hundreds of thousands of just like cannonballs, you're still going to lose just because of the sheer number, i.e. Russia annihilating Germany's specialized units in World War II. I mean, they had boxes, literally cardboard boxes with guns on it, and they just overwhelmed it, right? So, and that's why the Mormon Church is still successful, because it doesn't matter what kind of evidence is presented. They can pull 5 million people from any direction, and those are like 5 million individual people. And as we've seen with like certain groups of Mormons, they also have bot accounts. So you have 5 million people, and those people have hundreds of bot accounts. You're gonna get overrun.
And it's to your point. That's what I sometimes wonder too, right? I do have sometimes, or more than I want to sometimes, but it's really okay. Mormons who do then, write something towards me. You were never a believer. You never and they don't even know me, right? They don't know. So that's my funniest thing is I worked in the temple office. I have a temple marriage. I was in multiple presidencies. But it's not about, like Dave said, it's not about facts or anything. It's about feeling. They want to stay in no matter what. You and me, we came to a side where we now allow facts to matter. They only want the facts that supports them, because otherwise that's why I don't even care anymore having an honest conversation with them too. And we'll just say, oh, that sounds a lot like small dick energy. That's not a good response from my side, but it shuts them down, right? Because then they don't want to talk, because now all of a sudden, I'm, talking trash, because they don't even care. I could say nothing to make them see the truth or that I'm factually right. And when I see that, when they attack, for one example, it wasn't even my video, but somebody was like, oh, your eyelashes look so bad. Then I'm just like, shut up, motherfucker, because that's not an argument. My eyelashes are too big. No. That's just an attack on my person. And that's what Mormons do. They attack your person, or they pretend you never knew, you never had a true testimony, or like Jacob Hansen said, right? Dan is not a real Mormon because he's too liberal. He literally said it. No, I'm not a conservative. I'm just a true believer.
And this is the problem that I have with, I'll just say this point quick. This is a problem that I have with like so many of like the ex-Mormon community being like the older generation, like the John DeLynns, right? Because again, and this is just and we've talked about this, Randy, because you and I have worked together, right, on this, sure. But it's the marketing perspective, right? Because people like yourself and John DeLynn, they're coming with facts, they're coming with evidence, and John DeLynn has been very successful. However, the church isn't going for that academic approach. Even, you look at Fair Mormon and Jasmine Rapoli, right? The way she talks resonates with young people. The more the LDS Church's marketing strategy is designed to, be of TikToks and things like that are geared toward younger people. And that's why you have a bunch of, ward radios and, what is it? The Lions, like Rising Zion, like you have so many younger people in the podcast space that the Exmo space doesn't have, because and when it comes to the marketing standpoint, right, like that's ultimately going to be the deciding factor in not all cases, but in many cases. And that's why, again, they have that influence.
But that's a
Diamond,
good point.
I'm going to acquiesce, and I'm going to prove you right.
Okay.
I think about what you just said about the members of the church, and hey, it's in their brain, and they're not going to just that really, honestly, it doesn't matter what you present to them.
Yep.
Because they are indoctrinated. And I have to draw a parallel to politics. I'm not even going to say any names, but certain leaders and presidents can do anything. They can be murderers, child molesters, thieves, break the law, and his people still support him.
Because
I
facts
keep
don't
hearing
matter.
things thinking, that's it. He's done. He's
Yeah,
done. And
fame
they
matters.
still support him.
But back to what Dave said, and I looked it up actually like months ago. So, you know how you said like John Dehlin is so successful? I think because of the stories, not about when he has facts debates. So every time he just let a Mormon express, you know, what they went through, it's just their story. There's no truth and wrong, because you cannot say to somebody that's not your experience, because it is their experience, right? Because most of those people, yes, they will mention like doctrinal things and lies, but mostly they will share like, oh, my upbringing was so good, but then something happens. Like mostly it's like either the temple experience was odd, or after marriage, or a kid became LGBTQT, right? Those are all feelings. Those are not facts. The funny thing is, any podcast he did with, was it LDS Discussion in Nemo, when it's about church history and doctrines, are normally a third viewers, a third or even less. So the stories go over 100,000 views. I don't think any LDS Discussion made it over the 20,000.
Yeah, I have gaming videos that have
huge. I was so surprised because to me, but truthfully, that was afterwards. Those truth things from LDS Discussion, I think Mike is great, Nemo is great, but that's when you more want this, like, yeah, I am right, was bullshit, right? But the stories were truly where you feel heard, where you're like, oh yeah, so I was not the only one who felt awkward in the temple. I'm not the only woman who really feel like, I'm not sure I'm a first citizen in this church, right? So it's funny. This is true. I think John Dehlin is mostly famous because he let people talk and share stories, and not because of his things when he talk about data.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like, and that's something that I looked at with John Dehlin, Mormon discussions, and like other stuff. Like when it's a panel like this, or when someone's being excommunicated, or John is sharing their stories, it'll hit 100K views, no problem.
Yep.
Right now, when he sits down, and I forget who that guy is, but he's an older balding man with like glasses, and whatever his name is, and they go into like a really intellectual deep dive of like Book of Abraham. Nobody shows up because nobody cares. Nobody's looking for that. Right? I have some gaming videos that have more views than John Dehlin does, and he's got at least 20, 30 times my following. You know what I mean? Nobody cares about that, but people want to feel heard.
And same Dan Vogel, right? I mean, also he has a voice that is really like mundane. But when I have ADHD, so I also then struggle to listen to those people. It's for me really just a monotone voice. But when I really get into it, I mean, that guy is a genius. I mean, he has insights and how he keep it up from like the bird's view, but it's really hard to listen to him. And same thing when John has Dan on, they don't get a lot of views, and it's sad. But because it's such a deep dive, where I think also a lot of Mormons don't even care. They really don't care. They felt it's true. They felt it's right. You cannot persuade them of anything else.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't make sense, but it's absolutely true.
Yes, that's why it's the God virus, right? That book helped my husband so much. It's a virus. It has nothing to do with intellect. There can be successful people in the world, right? We're not saying all Mormons are stupid or dumb. We've been once. So it's not like I gained intellect or anything. I just opened up to more factual things and things. It's not like I got smarter or anything. Not at all. Plus, it's not even like I found it out. Tons of people before me found it out, and I appreciate that they were sharing it, right? But it's like...
Welcome, Chuck.
How you all doing? I'm just sitting back listening. This is interesting.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts about Mormon Shrivel, about the book? Oh, we got the echo.
We got the echo now.
Yep.
Chuck, what are you listening to?
Oh, I don't have anything on. I've turned everything off.
He needs headphones.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Okay. We were all talking. I didn't hear any echo until I said something.
Okay, I am. What? Are you hearing an echo now?
Let's see.
Are you hearing
No.
it? Huh?
No. Wait.
Okay. I was going to
Wait.
say this. You know.
No, we hear echo. I
Okay.
can
Well,
hear
there's
myself.
We'll let Chuck
Yeah.
talk, and then Chuck, you mute yourself.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's interesting. You all just talking about John Dealon, what's going on with his situation, and I've been seeing a lot of these YouTube podcasters, you know, going on. It's similar to people who are denouncing their secret organizations they've been members of. They end up denouncing and leaving. And there's a guy I know. I don't call his name, but he's bringing awareness to hazing in these various organizations, not just Greek letter organizations, but other organizations. Just it could be work, like it could be police department, fire department, any workplace, anywhere. And he's just bringing attention to hazing because he was a victim of hazing, and he's on YouTube, and he's getting a lot of viewers as well. And he reminds me of John Dealon. I told him about John. I said, you all are very similar with the way you approach things, giving people a chance to speak about their experiences in these different organizations. And when I'm hearing the religions, I'm getting these same kind of stories. And it's just great listening to you all. That's why I didn't interrupt you all, because I'm just enjoying just listening to you.
Thank you.
I made a mental note in chat to touch on Brandon. Oh, echo. But I made a mental note to touch on Brandon's excommunication real quick, because I feel like Brandon is a special case, right? Because like I know he's close with Rebecca Biblioteca, and I know like there's a lot of people in the chat.
Landon Brophy.
Oh, Landon. Why did I type Brandon?
I always do that too, honestly, Dave. I'm glad.
I'm gonna blame the beer. I'm gonna blame the beer.
I always
Okay,
mix it and then
Landon.
say Brandon. Yeah.
Yeah,
Brandon Lofi, I think is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
But so Landon.
Yeah,
But anyway,
Landon Brophy, yeah.
yes, thank you, Songs. So but yeah, I want to touch on him quick because I know a lot of people are upset by this, and like when Rebecca talked about it, everyone like freaked out in the chat. And for me personally, it's like, why is Brandon or Landon specifically a big deal? Because he's been out for 10 years. He said he's never going to go back. So it's not even an excommunication. It's more the church like, okay, you're not a member anymore. And like Landon doesn't seem to care from what I understand.
No, I don't think they make a big deal per se. I think what they're kind of alluding to is, and I was thinking the same thing. First of all, why now, right? He's, like you said, he's out for 10 years. Why not? Why now? Why does it took 10 years? What did he do now? But I have a brother who's still a member. I have a brother-in-law who's a member who lived way worse when it comes to Mormon standards than Landon ever did. Nobody is excommunicating him. So the thing is more like, so they have a problem because he's talking about the church and they don't like the tone. But then it's also like, so you have to kick out people. What does it make? It's not making Landon stop talking. It's not like anyone thought he's a believing member and now he's less, of a threat because you excommunicate him. I think it's just like, why are thousands of members are still in? Nobody excommunicate them ever. They're living way shittier lives. But all of a sudden, Landon out of nowhere, right? That's just the thing. It's just more questions.
Well, I think Landon is a more public thing of what I've predicted would happen all along with Oaks and like doubling down on retrenchment. I think what Landon is what we're seeing, and it wouldn't surprise me if the church is doing this with other people we don't hear about, but they're just like, they're going to start phasing people off of the rolls to like, focus on their Orthodox believing membership, right? So it would not surprise me if there's a letter at like my old place in Utah saying, hey, we withdrew your membership. That's fine. I don't care. I'm not even in the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think Landon is just more the public face of that, where the church is going to be like, okay, well, this person isn't going to come back.
But what's with RFM, right? RFM is way more critical, way harsher. Nobody has him excommunicated.
I would not be surprised if that's in the works now. And it's just like kind of an order thing, because I mean, if they're going to do it the way I'm predicting with thousands of people, right, that still takes time, right? So, I mean, Landon could just happen to have been one of the first for, I don't know, ward, location, alphabetical order. I don't know, but
And I
like,
think that's what they were just alluding to. What you just said. Is it a new wave coming now? Is it an
Yeah.
Oaks thing? And I think I don't think Rebecca or Landon were, shocked or anything. I think that's just what they're pointing out, right? It's like, we have pedophiles who don't get excommunicated, but here's a Landon who's like, at least, I mean, I met him once, seems like a really chilled, nice, calm guy. Even in their text, they're respectful. Like RFM, I feel like he has nothing against RFM. I think he has great humor. But
the difference but the difference is the child abusers are paying tithing. Landon is not.
Yes. Oh, maybe.
So
I
I mean,
know, yeah.
I mean,
so randomly, right? That's all I think everybody's pointing out.
Yeah.
It's like you have ex-Mormon content creators who don't get excommunicated, or they maybe have some stake presidents, which seem with RFM, they're buddies, so they have maybe a hand that protects them, right? So there's all sorts of things in Mormonism. It's just showing how weird Mormonism is. There's no clean cut, no clean line where they draw the line actually, right? I think that's
it's the same with the corporate world. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same with the corporate world, or I would argue like any group of humans, right? Where you have any group of humans, friends will protect friends, and then everyone else is on the chopping block.
And that was healing to me, kind of what Chuck just said. That was healing to me, honestly, hearing ex-Baptist members, hearing from and following, not just, in the beginning, I only kind of followed, obviously, because I was curious about ex-Mormon content. And then I saw ex-Baptist, ex-evangelicals, ex-Catholic. And you noticed, and to the point, Dave, we said before, is they all have the same reason why they leave. There's nothing really special in Mormon waters. It's just once you allow yourself to deconstruct and see like, something doesn't feel good anymore. There's no goodness that I thought was there. Then you leave. And that to me was almost more healing than only staying in the ex-Mormon chamber and, keep, chewing through things with them, but hearing others. And then also you notice they had the same thing. They got called not faithful enough. They get called from their own members to like, why you tear the church down? And you're like, oh, that's not just a Mormon thing, right? I still hear this funny enough where I'm like, so little Jesse in Texas is tearing down $1 billion corporation. Either your organization is really shitty if they're afraid of one little Jesse, or you making shit up as every other organization. Like you said, if you're just afraid of people who kind of maybe push a little bit the status quo, then I would say you're just as bad as everybody else.
Yeah.
See,
the Mormon
feels bad. Randy feels badly that the church isn't excommunicating him. We need to start a campaign. Excommunicate Randy now.
I love that. I feel a little left out and unimportant that I'm not excommunicated.
So the Mormon atheist had a really good question, and it's, do you think it's a warning shot letting all the faithfuls know what's up? And the short answer is no, because nobody knows who Landon is.
Nope.
Yeah.
And
I
don't know.
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but if you think about it, well, exactly. Most faithful Mormon members all around the world have never heard of John DeLynn. Yeah. And John DeLynn has a way bigger following than Landon. Nobody knows who he is. Yep. Nobody cares who he is.
Yep.
Like, he's not a big enough player for it to matter. Right. Yep. Now, if I don't know, like Tim Ballard, right? If this happened to Tim Ballard, which is its own rabbit hole, but let's pretend Tim Ballard was an upstanding man.
I think it's a dinosaur hole. That's not a rabbit hole.
I know, right? But if Tim Ballard had done that with his following, yeah, you could say that's a warning shot because many people know who that is. Landon's like us. He's a nobody.
Yeah, but to your point, I'm not going into Tim Ballard issues, but to your point, he got excommunicated. Mormonism has this power. They devour everybody. Tim Ballard plays nothing in Mormonism, nothing. He tried with the Catholics. He tried, I think, with some other Christian denomination, right? If he gets a platform there, they celebrated him a little bit and then they dropped him off because then they figured that he's still half Mormon or wants to be actually back with the Mormons, right? But that's the thing. Mormonism can devour you. If you're not a player anymore, even with Tim Ballard, they took all the books from Desert News, right? They just finish you and you're done and you have no credibility in Mormonism. Like we all, that's what, to your point, I don't know anyone in my family knows who John DeLynn, and that's the biggest player in ex-Mormon content. They have never heard of his name. They don't even care. I think that's why the lawsuit also goes kind of down for them, because they're like, oh, yeah, if he's like, a menace to society, get rid of him. But I don't know who he is, but he's just a menace. Sure, our church is right. So,
I've been seeing that. Because like Chicago and like secular state media in different states outside of Mormonism has been reporting on it on Facebook, and John Dehlin shared some of it. And I read the comments on those pages, and literally it's just, the members, if you're Mormon or ex-Mormon, people talk about it, but everybody else is like, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
Why do I care?
Well,
why
that's
does
why
this
exactly. That's why the joke is with that lawsuit, right? Like somebody said it, and I thought it was so on point. Now 1,000 more members learn who John Dehlin is. Because nobody heard about it. Now all of a sudden it's like, which lawsuit? What? Who is he? Why are we suing him? Right? It's like this. What do they call it? The Barbara Streisand effect, right? They should have just be quiet.
Well, and I mean, the thing about that is too, it's, I think, and this might be a bit of a conspiracy theory, but if my hypothesis of the church retrenching and going more orthodox is accurate, which I believe it is, because I'm biased, because I think of it. Right. But I do think they're going that route. And I think actually sharing John Dehlin works in their favor, because the only people that will take them seriously are people who are progressive, people who support the LGBTQ, etc. And then they'll go over to him, they'll question, and they'll leave on their own without the church having to do spend time and money on mass excommunications. Right? It's either spend time and money on excommunicating all these people, or just let them go to John Dehlin's camp and they leave on their own.
Well, and that supports the Jacob Hansen story, right? That Jacob Hansen goes after Julie Hanks. He just had to go and tell the stake president, I don't think that Julie Hanks is really what you think she is, right? Or Dan McClellan. It's a witch hunt. He's just calling out liberals he doesn't like. And he knows if he finds a very conservative stake president, they will listen. Like Natasha Helfer, right? She was even excommunicated in a different state by a different stake president who hardly knew her. But if you have somebody who has a grunge and feels like you're too liberal, you definitely get rid of the liberals, and it's harder to get rid of conservatives, like the whole like fringe, like the in Idaho and something. They will never excommunicate him because they're not really a threat to the church.
Well, there's that, but they're also like still involved in paying tithing, and they're willing to go with the difference between. Like the Orthodox members are like always willing to go down with the ship, right? Like when you have hardliners or even just moderate people who truly believe, right?
Yeah.
Like Jacob Hansen's like gonna stick with the church till the day it dies. Assuming it dies, right? But Jacob Hansen, Ward Radio, they're going to stay with the church to the day it dies. So the church doesn't care about them. It wants to weed out like the wheat and the tares. We've all heard that story, right? Separate the wheat from the tares. But hey, if the tares can separate themselves, that saves us time. So it works out for everybody.
That's why they do the dirty work for them, right? They do the dirty work for them. They don't even have to get their hands dirty, because they have those people who are so full of Mormonism that just do it by free will. They don't need to get paid by the church, although now we know they do get a little bit paid by the church.
I mean, it's a standard approach, because I mean, like you'll see non-religious influencers do this, right? I mean, I've done this on my Facebook page every so often. Like I'll engage in trolling or whatever and express political views just to phase out people I don't want on my page. Right. Because I could go through 108,000 people and ban them, or I could just express what my opinions are and let people leave on their own. It saves me time. Right. That's a much smaller scale, but everybody does this. So it's not like the Mormon church would be doing anything new. No. It's that the Mormon church would be doing what every YouTuber does already, or every influencer does.
You always want, I mean, even Brigham Young did it, right? If you think about it, you want to keep the ones who are closest to your ideology, who are 100% backed polygamy, even if they lived it or not, but they had to back the brethren. If you back the brethren, then those people we want to keep. We don't want to keep the one who are activism, who want to change things. Like maybe they force us to change things in the long run, but not because we willingly wanted to, right? It's more like maybe the
exactly.
But it's not like it's welcomed.
Well, yeah, and that I agree with that 100%. Same thing with me and every other influencer. I care about the people on my YouTube lives who are giving me super chats and paying for gifted memberships. I could not care less about anybody else, right? You know, like if you're there and participating in chat and having a good time, I want you there. If you're giving me money, I definitely want you there. If you're like, oh, stop using AI for your thumbnails, kick rocks. I don't need you.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And
Same
people
concept.
can leave, but you don't hunt them down, right? The thing is, and you also don't claim, obviously, Jesus told you to do it, and that's the
Well,
best
no, exactly. But the principle's still the same. It's
Yes,
like you could just push these people out on their own, just give them a friendly nudge toward the door.
Exactly,
You know, that's what I think they're doing with John DeLynn. They're
Yeah.
just nudging them to the door.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I have a question, though. What exactly do the people who stay in the church receive? What are they getting? Permit me a moment to explain.
Okay.
I grew up in a cult.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knew it was a cult. High demand, high control. And I've asked over many, many years, members, why did you stay in? And there's, members of my own family are still part of this church. I mean, I think we're up to 54 churches, maybe more. 54 was the last time I checked. What does my church provide beyond the really cool myths? A credit union, a retail cooperative, a time bank, a health care sharing ministry. It's now a ministry. It used to be just a different nonprofit. Not since Obamacare, that law allowed these kinds of organizations to exist tax exempt. There was a Rosca, which is a kind of credit union that works a little bit differently. We had all of these different benefits. So everyone could essentially exist within the church and be economically independent from the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You get me?
Yep.
And there was jobs that people would get for each other. I worked in a bookstore that was owned by a member of the church, and I was paid in the 1990s. I was paid $7.50 an hour. That's the equivalent to getting $25 an hour today. So that's one way. The other way is the old Napoleonic tactic of giving everybody medals. And Jessica just told us about what she did or the title she had before she separated from the church. And it was a list of 7 or 8 titles that you held at a different moment. Yep. The Mormons call it callings.
Yep.
So you're either getting a capital benefit from the organization that you're a part of, or you're getting some kind of other benefit, some sort of credential. Mm-hmm. So which one of the two is it the Mormon Church? Is it a capital benefit or a credential?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it's both.
So
I'm going to say...
So until either of those begin to fall apart, the people in the church are going to stay. And they're going to do whatever they have to chase away the people who don't participate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I mean, like, even as like an influencer at my peak, I was at 120,000 followers, and I even started this is going to be cringe, but like when I moved to Utah, originally my Facebook page was Wonder Crush, had barely any followers, and was like Call of Duty. But then I started doing family-friendly Minecraft, and I was the Stormin' Mormon. And I surged in following. I deleted all of that because it's just embarrassing. But like, the Stormin' Mormon, yeah. And I did family-friendly Minecraft, and to Alex's point, right, there was capital and social things, right? So literally, like my quote unquote calling, my bishop told me, was keep doing what you're doing. And I was like uploading not just Minecraft streams and Minecraft shorts where members of the church would donate money to, but I would also post pictures of me, in my ward going to church. And I would sit out in the foyer during sacrament meeting. And the bishop told people, give him sacrament in the thing. He's doing a good thing. Just leave him alone. It's his calling, right? So there's that influence, there's that capital benefit like you talked about, there's that credential of Diamond Dave is doing something good for the church, he has influence, he has an international following, this is going to be good, right? And the church will bend over literally backwards to the point of, I was using nicotine pouches and still allowed to take sacrament, and I was going through the Melchizedek priesthood. I would occasionally smoke cigarettes, and the bishop's like, you know what? It's a journey. He's doing more good than harm, right? They gave all these excuses and work towards the Melchizedek priesthood.
It's amazing how patient true believers can be with those who don't meet all of the requirements if they perceive you as somehow contributing to the capital.
If you're useful. If you're useful.
That's the word I'm searching for. So if you're contributing capital and you're contributing to other people's credentials, they will put up with your bullshit.
Exactly.
And
it's true. It's true because
that is one of the testaments that you hear from people who exit high demand religions.
Exactly.
How many people were forgiven their trespasses for the most horrible things, but they were connected to people who were in the inner circle or who were higher up, or they were donating lots and lots of money.
Exactly. And that was kind of my case, because when I first moved to Utah, right after the rebrand and after I started making the money, right, all that happened, and then while other average everyday people struggled to get financial support, or bishops where get access to the bishop storehouse for food, the bishop cut a check to do almost $2,000 worth of work on my car for my full-time job that I moved there for, because they saw that I was making anywhere from $250 to $400 a month off of Facebook and Twitch and stuff combined, but I would donate all of that to the church, right? And so their mentality is he's making money, he's getting big, he has followers in India where we're trying to expand, he has followers in Africa and Southeast Asia where we're trying to expand, he's giving wholesome content in line with the church, which is what we want to see. Yeah, we'll drop $2,000 on his car, right? Yeah, we'll help this guy out because this guy's going to not only pay it back in tithing, but he's going to get bigger and make more in tithing, which means we make more money and he gives us more influence, right? Yeah. Now, the average everyday person who's hey, I go to church, I struggle to pay tithing, I can't pay my bills. The bishop's well, go to this financial course, and do all these things, and maybe we might be able to help you. Right. And it's really just an interesting dynamic that I am learning about more now, because I'm not trying to brag. This blows my mind to this day. Right. So it's not about how cool I was. It's me opening my eyes and seeing how privileged I was, hearing all these stories of average everyday people, especially people of color, who did the right things and, checked all the boxes, and they still struggle to get little, if any, help. Whereas someone like me, I use nicotine pouches daily. I occasionally smoke daily, right? And the bishop's well, it's the cost versus gain. He's working towards something better. God, this is really between him and God, and they just kind of back off it, right? And it's just kind of
to Alex's question about the cult, nobody ever thinks they're in a cult. Right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 40 or 40,000 or 14 million. Nobody who's in any sort of organization would never say, oh, yeah, I was in a cult. You only kind of name it that when you leave. That's when you are more aware. And it could be anything. Right now, we know cult is not necessarily a religion. Can be Apple, can be your political party that you're too much involved and you cannot separate yourself from the organization. That's when it's a cult, right? So because I grew up in Germany where Mormonism was a cult. In Germany, they don't accept them as a religious organization. So I did had to kind of overcome this weird thing in my head of they're saying we're a cult, but I know we're not a cult. Everybody in my cult is saying we're not a cult. Haha, right? First big red
it's a similar thing in America, but what it is all the other churches that look like our church, they're cults, but ours isn't.
Exactly. It's always the other, right? And then the other thing is I don't think, and that's where it's getting so complicated, that your organization necessarily has to even give you something, because my family, we were privileged enough financially. We never had the church supporting us financially, but it's also, I feel still in Mormonism, it's still this feeling of specialness, right? If you're good tithe payers, you're, the whole, the gospel, prosperity gospel and stuff. And the more you up in the church, it's almost the more you give, the better you feel. It's not even because then you want to be prideful. Like, I never asked the church for a dime, but we almost give 11% of our tithing, right? We give fast offering. Like, my husband was super proud of giving really gracious fast offering on top of tithing because that made him feel more righteous.
Chuck,
That's
I've done that. Chuck, did you want to add something?
Yes, I'll add some. I didn't want to interrupt you all. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no echo.
Okay, I have this. Yeah, I had to say, I found this, and I didn't want to interrupt anything, but that's something you just adding on. We all were talking about with tithing. It's kind of you start talking about these secret organizations. I've been seeing a lot of podcast people denouncing, saying they turn their life over to Jesus Christ and all that. They getting out of these Greek letter organizations and other secret organizations, and you know they had, you know, in these groups, you know, they pay their dues and everything else. They and some of paying their dues to stay active. And is that what tithing is? Is tithing kind of like dues in your faith to stay active in it?
Yeah, you have to pay 10% consistently in order to maintain your temple recommend, and if not, that temple recommend is in jeopardy. Although songs did bring up a point where that is kind of up to bishop roulette, which is what it's called, where it's basically you have a bishop at a ward and he's very strict about it, but you go to the ward like 2 blocks away and he just does not care whatsoever.
But you do have every end of the year in Mormonism, you need to sign up for an interview with your bishop where he shows you literally the payments you did. And then you need to sign if that's your honest tithing or not. And if you say no, then you still have to pay kind of like in hindsight what you have missed to make it even with God. That's every
they stopped
year.
that now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't do it anymore.
Yeah, it used to be, so to make it simple for Chuck and like, you know, other people, it's basically arrears in child support, right? So like I pay child support, and if I miss a payment or whatever, I have to pay that back. Right.
Yeah.
The bishop could say, hey, you didn't pay your full 10%. You owe us X amount of money.
So what do they do now?
I mean, I've been out, so that I'm not familiar with personally.
Yeah.
I have still heard it happens. So again, this might just be a case of bishop roulette.
Yeah.
Right.
Chuck, what church were you in?
I grew up in the Baptist faith. We don't have any of that. We don't have any the tithes. We have tithes and offering, but it's not anything to force you to pay to you. This is going to happen to you. We don't have Baptist is different from these other faiths, from LDS and others. We don't have anything called excommunication or anything. I'm in the Black Baptist tradition, and the way it's run, it's just each church is run independently. They're under a association, but the thing about it, each church is run independently. That's the difference between them and these others, you know, like Methodists that are governed and all. Each church is run independently. That's the difference between Baptists and Methodists or any of these other faiths, Catholic and
there's no centralization, right? It's really just individual.
So the closest thing to tithing for what is it called? A conventional church is that you have to pay a portion of your incomes to the association to remain in the convention. That's how Baptists are organized.
Okay.
But there's no other real benefit. Just, you know, having access to other people, other resources potentially. Whereas the Mormons, if you don't pay your tithing, you don't get into the temple.
Yep.
And the temple is where all the really weird, important shit, weird and quote important shit happens. So you know, say Jessica was no longer a tithe payer, but she was on her way out, and her son got a temple marriage. Her bishop could say, "You're not paying your tithing. You're not up to par as a believing Mormon. You're not allowed to enter the temple. I'm not going to give you a card, so you can't watch your son being married in the temple to his Mormon girlfriend."
Yeah, well, that's why a lot of people need to attend that wedding.
Yeah. And Chuck, just so you understand, to Alex's point, like when he say where the important shit happens, it's not it's not just like the religious concept of salvation. Like that is a big thing. But in Mormonism, Mormons do business with other Mormons. So like if you were to be a Mormon and pay your 10% tithing, you would go in the temple and you would literally be rubbing shoulders with CEOs and billionaires and millionaires.
It's a bit
right?
like masonry. It's a bit like
Yeah.
Freemasonry.
It's just a little like Freemasonry.
And you cannot get a church job, a paid church job, if you don't have a temple recommend either. Like a lot of members work for the church, but you have to be I don't know what they call it, an active temple record only member to even work in headquarters. Or in Germany, we had the Europe headquarters was in Frankfurt. So we had a lot of members working there. You had to have a temple recommend. BYU is the same. So the professors, you're really afraid for your job. So that's why they're often so quiet and struggle with activism, because they literally would lose their job as a professor. And what I understand, BYU is not necessarily really looked up as this awesome university outside of Utah. So then those professors have a hard time getting another job as a professor somewhere else.
It depends on the field, but
and that may be too.
Yeah, it depends on the field, because they have the third best, like objectively the third best, like accounting course. In America.
I was going to say that. You know,
but
an accounting degree for BYU.
Yeah,
that's important. But yeah, so like Chuck, so like you are literally rubbing shoulders with millionaires, billionaires, and as Alex said, it's like Freemasonry, right? And so that's where the important shit happens.
Although you can't really talk in the temple.
Well, but here's the thing. But you can't talk in the temple.
But you see,
Okay, so but you like Jessica was saying, you see these people, and so you know who they are.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've heard of people in Utah who, you know, young people out of BYU, they go to the temple and they see someone who works at BlackRock, and then they apply online, but then they'll show up and see that person in that financial advisor position, and it's just unspoken. I saw you at the temple. You know what? I got an opening. Let me. Why don't you just come on back here? Forget the application process. I've seen you unspoken, right? But I've seen you in the temple, right? You're one of us. So why don't you just come back in my office? Let's see what I can do for you here.
Well, same with being
where the connections
missionary badge. Same thing, right? Return missionary, you can trust hard worker because they learn so much in 24 months. So that's why they all get those, like, what is the Bucks jobs, right? Where they spray the backyards. That's all return missionaries hired by some Mormon person who owned those companies, right?
Exactly. And that's where the important shit happens.
Sell things that maybe is not super duper credential, but that's what they did for 2 years. Why not keep doing it and making money?
Yep. And that's where the important shit happens. And that's how the investments get made. And that's how money laundering happens, is because you don't necessarily know their backstory, but you know faces.
It's a bit of an in-person credit rating.
Yeah, it is.
I see you in the temple. I know I can trust you because you're.
It's a caste system. It's a caste system. Let's be honest. It's a caste system.
Well, then the elite in Mormonism, if you have a temple recommend, you're definitely the elite, right? I mean, then you did everything right. Not, you don't say it necessarily, but because you answered, because you have to ask, you get questions from your bishop, and it's a double whammy, bishop and stake president. They ask you questions, and you have to say kind of like almost to everyone, yes, yes, yes. So that means everybody knows you were able to say, yes, I believe in the prophet. I would never say anything bad about the prophet. I believe in Joseph Smith, da, 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 da. So everybody who's in the temple knows you answered all those questions too, and you were good enough so that you're sitting there, right? Yeah.
Now that Laura's here, we have more non-Mormons, never Mormons, than we have Mormons.
Randy, do you want to maybe say goodbye? It's 2 hours 12.
I am I'm about ready to do that very thing, because we are way into the time. So, but listen, we are so grateful that all of you came and listened and took part, and you're welcome to pop in after the show and visit with us for a little bit. But we appreciate all of you viewers, and please, if you don't mind, we would love you to hit the like button if you haven't, because that means a lot to us, not just on Latter Daily Digest, but on the Post-Mormon Project channel as well. because it's kind of what helps us survive.
Yes.
So
Yes,
would appreciate that. And does anyone have anything else to say before we vamos? Hasta luego, adios.
After
I
show.
will say something before I get off. When I'm listening to this, I'm looking at all the stuff you start talking about Freemasonry and all these other. You talking about, keeping secrets. I hear this every time. I hear people in these fraternities and sororities and, like I said,
Yeah.
Masonry, and now they keep those secrets. And what's happening now? These people are going on YouTube, the ones that are denouncing, they're telling the secrets now about their experiences when they were online. They talked about the hazing and all that kind of stuff. And I think
Mhm.
people kind of coming after them about that. But they're saying, hey, look, they talking about they become Christians, and they said that they couldn't be in there and be Christian. And you're hearing a lot of that kind of thing. Not hear your experience of the LDS, and I think people are kind of saying, hey, look, this is not what it's all about. It seems like it's not what you just said, Jessica. It seems like it's not loving, and that's why people end up leaving.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, stay where you are. You don't need to click away. Stay right there. I'm just going to hit this little button. Love y'all.
All right.